There has been no player in MLB history with as ridiculous of a batting stance as Kevin Youkilis. While players like Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge can effortlessly lift the ball out of the ballpark, Youkilis used an approach never before seen, which helped him become a 3-time All-Star, Silver Slugger, and a 2-time World Series champion. But his bizarre antics at the plate didn't develop until later in his career. Instead, he went through years and years of trial and error to finally perfect his craft. So to truly understand his unusual journey, we have to start at the beginning of his MLB career. In his Major League debut on May 15, 2004, he homered off reigning Cy Young winner Pat Henkin in his second at-bat, prompting a huge smile to emerge across his face as he touched home plate, which grew even larger when he realized his teammates were giving him the silent treatment. Then, after a few seconds, which probably felt like an eternity, everyone got up to congratulate him on not only his first Major League hit, but also home run, becoming just the 7th Red Sox player to ever hit a homer in his first game. But when taking a look at his home run replay, we can see his batting stance wasn't anything crazy. He was in a squat position, his hands were high, and he had a small leg kick to generate power. Instead, his stance developed over the following years into the unorthodox method we all associate him with. So he continued with this approach throughout the rest of the year and was propelled into an everyday role immediately upon his promotion, something he took full advantage of. Between his debut on May 15th till August 15th, his numbers were amongst the best on the Sox. He hit for a good average at 280, OPS at 839, and got on base in 43 out of 48 games he started. He was grinding away at the plate, working long counts and walking a considerable amount. However, it was this type of grit and full speed mentality which interrupted his stellar rookie campaign, as he missed considerable time due to a collision at home plate on August 15th. And when he finally made his return on September 8th, he wasn't able to keep his early season spark going, finishing out the year with an abysmal 133 average and 404 OPS across his final 30 at-bats, prompting the Sox to look elsewhere during their postseason endeavors, where they went on to win their first World Series title in almost a century. Youkilis, however, never appeared. So while he was happy for his teammates and to at least be a part of their regular season success, he wanted more. He wanted to be on the field for the final out. He wanted to be the driving force in the lineup. For that reason, he set out to make his mark in 2005, but his year would not go to plan. Since he was coming off his rookie season, he still had minor league options left, which meant whenever there was room that needed to be made, he was shipped back down, giving him a tough time to get settled at the majors. And baseball players have always been creatures of habit. They like to have everyday at-bats in order to stay sharp, but with so little service time under his belt, Youkilis would not get this luxury, as he finished the year with just 95 plate appearances spanned across 6 promotions and demotions. He was stuck. That was until Sox's third baseman Bill Miller and first baseman Kevin Millar left that offseason, opening up 2 giant holes for Youkilis to take. Then, after the club acquired third baseman Mike Lowell from the Miami Marlins, first base was all his, and he did not look back. In his first season as a bona fide starter, he continued to use his elite plate discipline to draw 91 walks in 147 games. So the Sox elected to use him primarily as their leadoff man throughout the year, a very unorthodox lineup spot for a first baseman. Anyways, this move worked out well for the Sox, as Youkilis got on base at a 381 clip, giving their power hitters such as Mike Lowell, Manny Ramirez, and of course David Ortiz the opportunity to bat with a man on more often than not. In the end, Youkilis finished with an impressive slash line, 100 runs scored, and 42 doubles. He managed these figures despite struggling in the second half due to plantar fasciitis and an abdominal muscle injury. He wasn't the only player to struggle in the second half, which ultimately shut down the Sox out of playoff contention as they missed the wild card by 7 games. It was a disappointing finish to the year, as they still had the stars to make a deep run in the playoffs. David Ortiz had yet another dominant season at the plate. New additions such as Mike Lowell fit into the team perfectly, and Jonathan Papelbon broke out as a closer, tossing a sub-1 ERA in 68 1/3 innings of work. For Youkilis, this meant he had to get better, so he continued to tinker with his approach. Take a look at his first home run, and this one he hit in September of 2007. Right off the bat, you can notice a couple distinct changes. For starters, he is more crouched in this new approach, with his back elbow starting off a bit higher than before. Then, as he swings, he has a far more minimal leg kick than he previously had. This was not the last evolution of his batting stance, but it helped him break out even further in 07. Starting with a single on May 5th, he embarked on a 23-game hit streak which catapulted his batting average from 286 to 353 and OPS from 778 to 988, with the highlight of this stretch being an inside the park home run on May 28th, which perfectly bounced off the center field wall to allow him to score standing up. Before this happened, most wouldn't have ever assumed this was possible for him, but the big guy could move around the base paths better than you'd expect. Among first basemen in 07, his 1.4 base running runs above average ranked as the third best in baseball. In fact, he was just one of 6 to post a positive figure. With this in mind, he was maturing into an all-around first baseman. He could field well, hit for a decent average and power, as well as run the bases relatively well, which makes it no surprise what his manager had to say about his game. He's taking more of what the pitchers give him, using the whole field. He's going to work the count about as good as any hitter in baseball. Last year, if he got a 2-strike breaking ball, he might swing and miss. This year, he's fouling it off or taking it to right field. His increase in opposite field usage was on full display when he took Tim Hudson's middle away offering down the right field line, even managing to wrap it around Fenway's iconic pesky pole for a 321-foot home run. It seemed like everything was going right for the Sox's newest star, so as you would expect, some teams were not too fond of this, particularly the Yankees. He was hit by Scott Proctor, but the pitcher just wrote the whole event off, stating, "Getting hit is part of the game. If you take pitching inside away, you can't survive in this game." He has a point, and in this situation, you have to give the benefit of the doubt. However, this wasn't an isolated incident. On August 30th, Jabba Chamberlain threw over his head not once, but twice, resulting in him getting tossed from the game as well as receiving a 2-game suspension. Youkilis would add after the game, "That's the second time Scott Proctor hit me in the head. Coincidence? I don't know. It doesn't look good." This incident proved the Yankees had it out for him, and this wouldn't be the last battle with him and Jabba. But before we dive deep into it, let me ask you, are you a shorter guy that can't find comfortable and affordable clothes? Well, look no further than today's sponsor, Under 510 Clothing. Right now, if you click my link in the description, you get a $10 coupon to their website, where they have a wide selection of high-quality garments for all us shorter guys out there. And with the holiday season coming up shortly, they are a perfect gift to give. They have pants with inseams that go all the way down to 26, whereas most companies only go to 30. Not to mention the shirts, which hug the arms but give plenty of room in the chest. And the best part of all, they will not burn a hole in your pocket. So check them out and lots more by clicking my link in the description to get $10 off your first order with them. He finished out the 07 season with elite numbers, including 4.7 WAR, 53 extra base hits, and a slash line with all above average metrics. But the most eye-popping stat here, his 15 hit by pitches, an increase of 6 from the previous year. This was of course heightened by the Yankees' hatred of him, but regardless, this was also due to his ever-changing batting stance. Because as he started to develop into more of a squat position with his hands held high, he decided to inch closer to the plate, appearing a lot bigger to pitchers and therefore was hit far more often than the average player. He didn't care though, a hit by pitch is the same as a walk. This team-first mentality helped him get to where he was at that point, and he continued with the same drive throughout the playoffs. After improving by 10 wins from the previous year, the Sox won the AL East narrowly at 96-66 to set them up against the Angels. This was a team headed by John Lackey, Vladimir Guerrero, and many more. They were looking to win their second World Series title since the turn of the century, but so were the Sox. For Uke, after taking a backseat during their 0-4 triumph over the Cardinals, he looked to make his mark in the postseason. In Game 1, it was Josh Beckett versus John Lackey, ace versus ace, future teammates but at the time the biggest of enemies. It was poised to be a pitcher's duel, however in Uke's first playoff start, he wasted no time making a difference.
8. And Youkilis drives this, deep left center. The outfielders look up and it is gone into the monster seats.
This homer was technically the game-winning shot as the Sox went on to win 4-0. But to me, this homer signified much more. I'm a person who likes to believe that the mental side of the game is something analytics will never account for. In the case of his home run in the first inning, it showed right off the bat the Sox are ready to recapture the title of baseball's best team, a mindset they carried throughout the rest of the series, needing the required 3 games to advance to the ALCS. this time facing the, at the time, Cleveland Indians. During the opener, he scored in the first inning, third, and sixth to help the Sox take Game 1 in front of their home fans. But Cleveland wouldn't go down without a fight. In Game 2, they rode a 7-run 11th inning to even up the series. In Game 3, Jake Westbrook tossed a quality start, and the rest of the bullpen shut down the Sox's elite bats. And finally, in Game 4, they were able to jump on Tim Wakefield's knuckleball to take a commanding 3-1 lead. At this moment, the series spiked to an 87% win probability for Cleveland, leaving Boston fans with just a sliver of hope they could claw their way back. Yet the players were confident. Manny Ramirez said, "Why should we panic? We've got a great team, and we've been in this situation before. We've got nothing to lose." And Youkilis mentioned, "When you see something that's never been done before, you can believe in anything. For us, it's all about winning one game." He was referring to the 04 ALCS, when the Sox became the first team to overcome a 3-0 series deficit. 3 years later, they were looking for the same magic guys like David Ortiz and Curt Schilling had when they sparked that comeback. For Youkilis, he was a part of this team but was taken off the lineup for that series. Now it was his turn to be the catalyst for another iconic comeback. In Game 4, he put the Sox ahead before Cleveland even had a chance to bat with a solo home run off CC Sabathia. Though the game cooled down after Sabathia as well as Sox pitcher Josh Beckett got into a groove, with the score narrowly in the Sox's favor, up by a run in the top of the 7th.
Second, nobody out, and Youkilis into right center field. That will at least advance the runner as Sizemore can't make the play. Knocks it away. Pedroia will score, and Youkilis ends up at third. It's 3-1 Boston.
In a different scenario, that ball is caught, yet Youkilis couldn't care less. It was the first time they got on the board since the 3rd inning, and it finally knocked out Sabathia after 112 pitches. They would then tack on a few more in the following inning, including an RBI walk from Youkilis on 4 pitches, giving the Sox a lifeline as they took the series home for the final 2 games, where Youkilis once again couldn't be stopped with the bat, going 3 for 4 including 2 runs scored, an RBI, and a walk to help take the game comfortably 12-2, as well as even up the series at 3 games apiece. This was it. The Sox had become the first team to ever come back 3-0 a few years prior, and now they were looking to join an exclusive list of teams to claw back down 3-1. So with the momentum on their side, they continued to do what they did best, jump to an early lead. Pedroia led off the game with a single to left field. Youkilis followed suit with another single, and Manny Ramirez knocked in the game's first run on a ground ball. Getting on the board early is key to set the stage for the rest of the game. With this in mind, Yuke's first inning stats during the series were even more valuable. He went 4 for 5 with 2 walks, a home run, and 3 runs scored. He was the catalyst all series long for the Sox and continued this trend in the 8th inning. At this point, the game was already out of reach for Cleveland. Still, he put the icing on the cake with a 2-run homer over the monster, sending Fenway Park into even more of a frenzy than before. Then, less than an hour later, they had done it. With all odds stacked against them, they came back when no one else thought it was possible to advance to the World Series. At this time, there was no ALCS MVP, but if there had been, Youke would have received that title. During the series, he was a pill for Cleveland's pitching staff each time he got to the plate, managing 10 runs scored, 14 hits including 5 for extra bases, 7 RBIs, and 5 walks, helping him eclipse a 1500 OPS. So, as you would expect from his stellar performances, he was a hot commodity when it came time for post-game interviews.
You know, I can't speak for everyone, but I know myself and Pedroia, you know, we're 2 guys that have always been doubted our whole careers. You know, Dustin's too small. You know, I came up, I was, you know, too chubby. I can't run, I can't do this. And hey, this is the major leagues now, and it's not about how big you are, how small you are. It's about just going out there and having fun and playing baseball.
The stage was set for the World Series. On one side you have the Rockies, the team of destiny, a franchise which hadn't won the World Series in their 15-year history. But on the other, the Sox were looking to win their 2nd title in 4 years, after not winning anything for 86. Most thought this would be a hard-fought battle between the 2 clubs. However, it turned out to be a completely one-sided affair, as the Sox took the series after the minimum 4 games. And Youkilis got his opportunity to be on the field for the final out, something he was appreciative of in his post-game interview.
Oh yeah, we're a resilient team and we're a great team, and we're the best team in baseball this year. So we're just excited to you know, pull off this win, and you know, it's unbelievable to win a World Series again.
To follow up his World Series triumph, he enjoyed arguably his best regular season as a professional, and it stemmed from changing his batting stance ever so slightly. On the left, we have a homer from 07, and on the right, 08. It's very minimal, but on the right, he's standing up a bit more straight, and his hands are even higher than before. By being taller, it allowed him to tap into the power of his big 6'1", 220-pound frame. He topped his career high in doubles at 43, hit 16 more homers than he ever had before, and had a slash line which included a .312 average and .958 OPS. He was maturing into the bat of a typical first baseman, so after Manny Ramirez was traded at the deadline, he slotted into the cleanup spot in the lineup and went on to knock in 115 runs, 32 more than he ever posted before. But his offensive showcase wasn't even the most impressive part about his season, it was his defense. On April 2nd, he broke the Major League record for most consecutive errorless games by a first baseman at 195. So with both sides of the ball considered, it's no surprise he was a finalist for MVP, ultimately finishing third behind Justin Morneau and his teammate Dustin Pedroia. Though when it mattered the most in the playoffs, the Sox were unable to advance past the Rays in the ALCS. Getting eliminated always hurts, regardless of if it was in August like the White Sox this past year, or one win away from the World Series like Boston. Now, all that was left to do was regroup and try again the following year. It definitely helped they had a rising star at first base, so during the offseason leading up to the 09 campaign, he was rewarded, signing a 4-year, $41.25 million extension, which he was able to live up to in the first season, producing a slash equivalent from his 08 campaign. He was also able to get back at the Yankees by hitting a walk-off home run on April 24th, an especially rewarding moment after he had become the target of their rivalry. But in 09, that beef subsided a bit. Instead, he had trouble with the Detroit Tigers. On June 3rd, while catching a ball thrown by a shortstop, the runner Josh Anderson spiked the back of his foot, making Youkilis very upset as he threw his glove to the ground, ultimately forcing him out of the game in the 8th inning. It's tough to say this was on purpose. After all, there was no bad blood between him and Anderson or the Tigers. However, that started to change a couple months later during their series in mid-August. On the 10th, Miguel Cabrera was hit, so Edwin Jackson retaliated by hitting Youkilis. Then the following day, he was hit again, this time on the back by Rick Porcello. So he charged the mound and resulted in a huge benches-clearing, bullpen-clearing fight, with both sides angry even after they had been pulled away from each other. Youkilis and Porcello were both tossed and suspended 5 games each. To Porcello, this was a harsh punishment as he tried to play the event off as a misfire. You could even say Yuke's batting stance made him more susceptible to being hit. After all, it made him appear as though he was on top of the plate. And during the 09 season, it got even more egregious. Take this clip on May 28th, for example. Look at his hands. They were much higher from when he first entered in the league. And what's even more unique was where his top hand was located. It wasn't next to the bottom. It was a few inches above it. Then when the pitcher came set, he started to maneuver it back down to the end of the bat. Typically with batting stances, adding extra movements like this can throw off one's timing. But it worked for him, and it gave us one of the most recognizable batting stances in MLB history. It made Craig Counsell's high bat and Jeff Bagwell's low stance pale in comparison. Of course, Julio Franco also pointed the bat towards the pitcher, but Yuke took it a step further by holding his top hand a few inches above the bottom, while also holding his two legs together at the back of the batter's box, putting him in a position where not many people would have ever thought he could do damage. Yet somehow, despite his weird antics at the plate, it worked for him. And following the conclusion of the 09 season, he was voted as the 38th best player in baseball by a panel of 21 MLB executives. He was the clubhouse leader of this Sox team and was poised to bring them back to playoff glory. However, this is where injuries started to derail his career. In 2010, after starting off scorching hot, he was on pace to have his highest home run total, OPS, and OPS plus tally of his career. That was until he required season-ending surgery to repair a right thumb abductor tear he suffered in mid-July. In 2011, he played in 120 games, and while his numbers were still respectable, it was a significant dip in production from the previous few years. This was due to a multitude of reasons, such as his shin, hamstring, back, a sports hernia, bursitis in his left hip, and was scratched numerous times for other smaller ailments. As a result of this, he stated how he couldn't play at the elite level he wants to play at, which makes it no surprise his offensive numbers continued to plummet in 2012, with his name even falling out of favor with manager Bobby Valentine. So with his services no longer needed, the club opted to explore trade options, ultimately deciding to send him to the Chicago White Sox on June 24th. But before the transaction went through, Sox's GM Ben Cherington notified Valentine during their game a deal was pending, which is why following his triple in the 7th inning, he was lifted for a pinch runner to a monstrous roar from everyone in attendance. He even came back out of the dugout to acknowledge the 37,000 before he left for the last time. It was the end of a memorable era in Boston, one which saw them climb on top of the baseball world twice in a 4-year span. The first of which he stood a bystander as they recorded the final out, but the second would not have been possible if not for his heroics in each and every series. But now it was time to move on. The Sox were in the midst of their worst season in years, and he was no longer the player he once was. Regardless, when he returned to Fenway a few weeks later, he was embraced for his time spent in the red and white. He even stepped out of the box during his first at-bat to embrace the crowd, before turning back the clock by going 3 for 4 with 2 doubles. This game was part of a resurgence for him in the second half as he improved upon each of his stats he posted with Boston, giving him some value during free agency, ultimately deciding to sign with the New York Yankees. As you would expect, players who hop from Boston to New York and vice versa are typically not welcomed by fans so gracefully. Additionally, Jabba Chamberlain was still with the Pinstripes, and their feud even continued when he was with the White Sox. Now they were forced to be teammates, although they wouldn't be seeing much of each other as Youk only appeared in 28 games due to multiple back injuries, including season-ending surgery. At this point, he was 34, had his worst season of his professional career, and a back problem that would not go away. His time in Major League Baseball was over. When thinking back to Kevin Youkilis' career, we all remember him for his ridiculous batting stance, and for good reason. It was and will always be one of the most unique in MLB history. Yet it overshadowed his elite ability at the plate, which I hope I was able to highlight in this video, because on top of the craziness that went on in the batter's box, for a brief period of time he was a top 10 hitter in the entire league, despite his extremely unorthodox method.